Hey guys, I'm Lighty, and this is a quick video upon request at going over almost every single unique shown so far in the new uniques item discovered so far section. A lot of these I went over in the various uniques in 3.1 videos, so if I gloss over those, I might heavily gloss over them or just skip them altogether. And if I skip something, it's probably because it's in that previous thing. So I'll try to keep this under 10 minutes because there's a lot of things to go over. And most of these will be first impressions, although I've seen a lot of them already, but I'll still give you my, first thoughts on whether they're going to be useful, if they're going to be useful even at all. First off is On's Contempt Helm. Fizz as cast while at max power charges. Fucking, so you have to invest 2 joules into it to hit max power charges pretty much. Extra crit, okay, that's a piece of shit. This one's really good, Balefire. I saw this earlier on Reddit, and this seems actually insane. So it's quite good for Scorching Ray builds that are just doing like RF. You just kind of toss it into a 3-link, and it's pretty good. The 10% increased beam length isn't really good. Scorching Ray is already pretty long, but just having it scale at high of a level is quite strong. So I could see a lot of RF builds just using Balefire with a 3-link Scorching Ray. Arborix, saw it before, still shit. Blood Bond, level 15 Blood Offering. Okay, yep, so that's shit, because if you're gonna play minions and you're gonna use a chest slot, if you're playing SRS using Covenant or using Calm's Heart with multiple linked helms, same thing with Spectres, otherwise using Fizz Mortis, so this will have no real use. Bubonic Trail, this is quite strong because it has Abyssal Sockets, which are weighted incredibly high. 10% increased damage for each Abyss Jewel affecting you, which is probably going to be roughly 6 to 8 in most builds, if not more. Probably closer to 10 considering the new belt, which we'll go over in a second. And the level 20 Death Walk is just, it's like basically a cast Detonate Dead as you walk by things. So it's kind of like Abaraz Hoods, but higher tier, but you really can't make a build strictly out of it. It'll just be supplemental damage, I believe. Kane, piece of shit. Cyclopean Coil, can't be frozen, can't be ignited, can't be shocked. If you're, and then a bunch of, yep, that's bad. That's really bad because there are 2 insane belts at the moment, and this is not one of them. It's not Headhunter, and it's not that thing, so it's trash, but we'll go over that in a second. Carlito's Signature. This is the Diamond Flask we saw, but overall it's not that amazing. I don't even think Perfect Agony builds are even going to run it, so. Gloomfang. Chaos Leech, which is already not amazing. Lose life for each enemy hit by your spells and attacks. Skills chain extra time, not bad. Projectiles gain non-cast damage, extra cast damage per chain. So honestly, it's an okay amulet, but it's nothing super amazing, especially when the amulet slot. The issue is a lot of these uniques, and this is going to pertain to, like I said, a lot of these uniques, is that there's very definitive best in slots that are quite universal at the moment. With the introduction of 6-link, 7-link, 8-link helms, gloves, and boots, Calm's Heart is best in slot for almost every life build, unless it is a build-enabling unique or something extremely niche that fits a gap. Same goes for amulets, because you just have Biscos. Pure Talent, it's a great jewel. A lot of it's going to be Scions using it for stats, but a lot of Ranger builds will not use it. Duelists won't use it. Marauders probably won't use it, which is, but the Templar and Shadow are quite strong. 0.5 crit strikes. And the Templar, a lot of Scion builds, well, you'll always have the Scion. You'll probably start as Shadow or Templar, and then you could always path into the opposite. So it is quite good. Dodri Skin is kind of funny. Basically, this is, I believe it makes Blasphemy Totems, similar to the ones in the Dodri Zone. So it might make room for some sort of 5 to 6 curse, support. But there's already the curse support champion. And that one applies chill and also can hit across the map, so I really don't see much of a spot for this, maybe in very specific bossing. Grelwood Shank. This is a Fat Fizz Sword, which gives you additional projectiles if you've been hit recently, and Point Blank and Iron Reflex as stationary. So, like Spectral Throw, Frostblade, something. Doesn't seem amazing, but it's coolish. So this amulet's insane. In Presence there's a version for every type of damage types. This one is the Chaos one. There's one also for Fire, Cold, Lightning, and Fizz with their corresponding curses. This one is Despair, so the Fizz one has Vuln, Frostbite for Cold. You get the idea. The Maddening Presences, I believe they do 10% less damage and movement speed, or they take 10% more damage. It's something like that. It's minor, but it's quite cool. But overall, it's just a lot of damage, and it's a free curse. Period. So it's actually quite insane. It's quite strong. I believe a lot of builds might use this in place of Biscos when they're doing any sort of bossing or any sort of anything, because it just gives you a free blasphemy, and that is, a free blasphemy with flat damage, and additional damage and life and res. Like, it's just a lot of stuff it's giving you. So overall, this is gonna be worth a lot, I think. And it's week 1, and these prices will tank hard, but you could see the gist of this. See the cold ones, fizz ones. Like, there's not many on the market, but the fizz ones have flat fizz, added armor, life, stun and block recovery. It's a bit but Voln, free Voln. So I can see this for my Bladeful Totems build. Cold one's quite good, has mana regens. They have like kind of corresponding thematical stats. So, but yeah, they're going to be expensive. I think they're going to be for sure expensive. I could see them definitely maintaining around 3 to 5x throughout the league. Unique map, not a lot to say about that. Broken Heart, Sadist Chest, it's okay, unaffected by shock. So if you're really lazy with Victars, but chest slot is too important at the moment. You have belly. You have Calm's Heart. It's just not good enough to fill that slot. Invictus Solaris is 1/2 of the fire and ice shields. There's the ice shield, and actually you can. It's not listed on here, but if you combine the 2 uniques, you get a new shield. Magna Ecliptus. It's not very expensive and it's not that amazing, but what it does is it gives you elemental aegis, which is kind of like it just prevents X amount of elemental damage for the duration of it, and that's really all there is to it. Plus 2 gems can maybe allow for some purity shenanigans, but not much. It's a fat fucking mana armor meme helmet. Increased mana reservation, and then you gain R equal to your reserved mana, but it's just not going to be really used. It has unique skin, though. It'll be used for MTX. Ironheart was like heavy teased, and we were like, oh man, new best in slot chest. It had such cool, flavor text. And you read it, and it's a piece of shit. Barely any armor. I mean, it's 1,100, but you're considering the fact that like Brassstone has like 5k armor with the reduced penalty, block chance garbage, can't block spell even more garbage, and the strength bonus instead of grants 3 instead of 2, so it's 1% extra. Trash. Khaleesi's Grace are these ghetto 5-link gloves that give you base crit if you spend 800 mana and only last 2 seconds. Not a lot of builds spend that much mana, and there's already 6-link gloves for half the price, so I don't know what the fuck. Shield's kind of cool. Shared Suffering is a interesting mechanic, and it basically it's this funky thing where like you get elemental status ailments, and then when you hit things it goes off of you and they have them. So it's like if I were to get shocked and I hit something, then I might transfer the shock to them. So it's just like a cool concept, but overall I think it'll just remain a joke. We have the Nightmare Mace, which is the Elder Mace, and this is just a fat fizz mace. With a lot of these are pretty weird, the Elder scaling ones, and I'll go over which ones are insane strong in a minute. But yeah, the problem is that these, of all the greater things they have with scaling endurance chart, is the last line saying 400 flat fire damage taken per second per endurance charge. Now that's obviously mitigated by your fire res, so it's a lot less. I don't think it's good enough to merit the drawback at the moment. Oscarm, these are the Xeno gloves, but they're pretty good. I think they'll be quite useful for a lot of builds that don't have a really easy way of applying Herald Device Curse. So yeah, they're good. A lot of crit chance. Stormcharger boots, we saw them before, but they're just some solid leveling boots. You see them pretty often. Hungry Loop, it's a ring that consumes gems, and it gets a ghetto 5-link on a ring, but ring slot's too important, and 5 links are too abundant, so it has no real use at the moment. Long Winter, just insane amounts of damage. Poet's Pen is a weird scaling thing. Its identity is kind of blurred, but it's good. At the end of the day, it's still a pretty good Fizz Wand endgame. It's a couple hundred PDPS in the low end, but Fizz Wanders in a league that has the most insane Abyssal Elite Jewel scaling and probably in the game. This is the map for the shields. Pretty straightforward there. Yoke, it's an okay Onyx Amulet. Again, Amulet slot is too fucking strong at the moment. You have ES and CI builds, Presence at Eula. You have a lot of builds can use in Presence. Even more builds can use Bisco, so you also got Zoph's Blood, and you also got Pandemonious, so just wrong league. Watcher's Eye. Interesting jewel, I guess. Unaffected by Voln while affected by Determination. Not many builds from Determination. More run Discipline, but still not many, and it's just not that strong. These gloves are actually pretty fucking good. Now, it's 2 Abyssal Sockets, which is already quite strong, so stat-wise, you can just imagine this thing has an additional 100 life with, like, 6 damage mods. Okay, on top of that, percent life, percent attack speed. And if you plan it right, which it shouldn't be hard to do, you socket in the correct jewel sockets, Murderous and Searching Eye, you have Maim and Intimidate on hit, which is just good. But the problem is it's with attacks. That's the drawback, but it doesn't say melee attacks, just says attacks, so bow builds are like, holy shit. There's the cold half of the fire half of the triple half. It's just one of those items that they make that are like, I don't even know. So you want to have the enemy bleeding and ignited and Avatar of Fire, and it's a bunch of extra fizz and flat armor. If you don't have Avatar of Fire, but ultimately it's kind of a gimmick. Speaking of gimmicks, here's an item that is just strictly worse than Doriani's, which is not that expensive. Vector Leveling Helm. that's about it. Relicash and Patience, just fucking garbage boots. Golden Rule is kind of interesting. The bleeding you inflict is reflected to you, so this might enable the Bloody Pursuit Unatal boots, but I don't think it's still good overall. Soul's Wick is pretty... Actually, it's a really great concept. This is like a good... Just a good design. You know, when it comes to things, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Kind of like the Leper's Alms, and it's thematic, and it's just a good design. Whether it be good or bad, it's just well made. That's kind of what Soul's Wick is. So it gives you additional specters. They have half the cost. Insane crit strike chance. They have a base duration of 20 seconds. Now that specters aren't permanent and they don't travel between areas, so it makes your specters temporary, hyper critty, and it kind of promotes a playstyle where you could use Unearth and Desecrate on the fly, and it just, you know, it kind of changes up the specter meta, which is, I think, is a good thing. Whether it's good or bad, the Jewel, it's refreshing things, which is good. All right, now we're getting to some good things down here. This is a very interesting helm. It gives you an ability called Spirit Burst that looks very similar to Val Fireball, and it's a lot of new phrases and new words, but it has an Abyssal Socket. It's all res. You recover a bunch of your max life, 5% when a charge expires or is consumed, which is quite often. You gain charges on kill, and you gain an extra spirit charge for each jewel affecting you. Now, again, you're going to have probably upwards of 10 jewels affecting you. Unless, of course, this wording means different types, and then it's capped at 4 for each type. 1 for each type. Overall, though, it's more of a mechanic and build than just this is a good helm for this build. Possibly a lot of casters can somehow just fit it in there for extra damage, but overall it's very cool, and I like to see that in the future. Some cool interactions with Light Poacher. Iron Grip Gloves with some flat fizz. Basically just Valum if you find if it hits Vul and might sell. On's Might is just a piece of shit sword. That gives you a lot of stuff that you don't need for a lot of things you don't want to get. Hope Shredder. What can I even say about Hope Shredder? It's a lot of flat cold. Yet again, you're taking a ton of damage while moving. Now, I guess you could make a build where you mirror arrow and blink arrow around, whatever you want to call it, but you could be taking 4k cold damage per second while moving. Again, it's mitigated probably, but now Shimmeron is fucking insane. So it's a lot of spell damage, flatlining spells, multi per charge, base crit per charge, block chance per charge, more fucking flatlining per charge, and you take a ton of lightning damage per second per power charge if you've dealt a crit recently. Thing is, if you're doing any sort of totem build, you're not doing the critting, your totems are. The only time you're critting is if you lightning warp and flame dash and you accidentally hit something or shield charge and it crits. If you do, whatever. You and your fucking 60% accuracy. But it's just like that in your offhand, Void Batter in your main hand, fucking Bob's your uncle, you're full of damage. This belt is probably the best in slot belt, assuming you have the jewels, and in the league where there's already like better jewels by a mile day 2 than there ever was in the game. It's not going to be hard to get an insane 3-prop. Now, Darkness Enthroned is probably going to be best in slot built for any build that's not using Headhunter or doesn't have a belt that's mandatory for the build, which I don't think exists at the moment. I guess if you're playing Soul Thirst or Soul Tether type builds, you require those. Maybe Wretch, but probably still not. The belt's insane. You're going to see a lot of builds using it, if not, you know, over 60% of builds using this thing. It's just another mandatory slot. There's so many borderline mandatory slots at the moment, whether it's the belt, whether it's Biscos if you're mapping, whether it's just Calms if you can run it. A lot of things are just like, wow, well, why would you use anything else? You wouldn't. So here we are. Blasphemous Grasp these are Elder Gloves, increased damage with elements per Elder item equipped. So this is like the build your Elder set. And remember, it says Elder items, and that can be a rare. So if you go full Elder the build, any flask you use removes an ailment, not all ailments, but an ailment, and it gives you a bunch of damage, gives you a bunch of life. Kind of not as amazing as it sounds, and I don't think it even sounds that amazing, but it has some potential to be useful. A lot of Elder items are really good for builds. Unique-wise, you're limited, but again, you can just have Elder roll rares, which are just like normal rares. Out of the Lightless sounds insane. Like insane. Abyssal Socket, it's a chest. It's a 7-link chest. It says socketed by level 20 Ellie penetration, not proliferation. And I believe on the wiki it says pen is 37% Ellie pen. 20% chance to trigger Shade Form, which I believe makes you immune to Fizz. Percent life, percent mana, and more percent life and more percent mana per Abyss Jewel affecting you. Again, if it's different types of Abyss Jewels, that's capped at 4%, but if it's individual, that means it's a chest with like 20% life and 15% mana, although probably the scaling's probably up to 20, so it could be upwards of 30% life, 30% mana on a 7-link chest, built in level 37 Ellie Pen with an Abyssal socket in the part of the sockets. Yeah, it seems quite strong. Overall, these uniques, like most patches, when they have a large batch of uniques, a lot of them are leveling, a lot of them are trash uniques, a lot of them are cool concepts, like this, like this, that just don't translate into path. If you're an avid build maker, you could eat your heart out, you're going to have a ton of fodder to play with, but overall, of the handful of 48 things listed, which I think 2 might be hidden, you're looking at maybe 5 to 8 actually practical and useful, potentially best in slot items here for specific builds. But that's kind of always the case. That's just how Path works. Let me know what you guys think about these new uniques, and hopefully when we see I think there's one missing, what that's going to be about. Anyway, I'm Lighty, and you guys have a good day. Good luck in there, Abyss. Bye-bye.